got me feeling like a monster, or something you can never conquer. Oh, check yourself before you come around looking my way. And you're wicked and big on me, say I'm a monster. It's 3 times I said it before.
So I don't want to waste anyone's time, so let's get stuck right into mixing UMANSKYBASS. So the first plugin that I use is the HG2 from Black Box. The reason I really like this plugin is a super straightforward plugin that really allows you to get the finished product or whatever you're striving for really quickly. So if you look at this plugin, I have it on flat mode. I have the saturation at 80%, pentode is at 80%, and triode is at 60%. And then I have air engaged and the air amount is at about 50%. And I adjusted the output to where it would make up for the pentode and triode volume boosts. And the next plugin that I use is the Parallax from Neural DSP. So for the low compression, I had the compression at 0.95, the low pass was at 80 Hertz, and then I had the low level at -12 dB. And then for the mid distortion, I had that at 0.4 and the mid level was at -14 dB. And then I had the high distortion at 0 for the high drive, 100 Hertz for the high pass, and -15 dB for the high level. And then I generally adjust the equalizer. And the equalizer may change a little bit depending on what your specific mix needs. But for me, I pull back a little bit of 250, a little bit of 500, I boost 1000, and then I cut a little bit of the high end. And then the next plugin that I used is of course the Pro Q3 from FabFilter. So I had a high pass at 18 Hertz, I cut a little bit of the 67 Hertz, and this cut really allowed the bass and the kick to really play along really nicely within the mix, so it doesn't get that muddy within the mix. And then of course I do the 750 Hertz boost by 4 dB, just to allow the bass to cut through the mix a little bit more. And then I cut the 1.3 and the 2.2K range by 2 to 4 dB. This is just to get rid of any unnecessary harshness that's going on within this tone. And then I do a little bit of a low pass at 8.8K. And then along with this low pass, I do a little bit of high end accentuation just to bring a little bit more air into this bass tone. And the next plugin that I'm using is the Pro MB from FabFilter. You've seen this multiple times on this channel. The really great thing about this plugin, it just really allows you to control the low end and the high end separately. So for all 3 of these bands, I have it at its fastest attack and a semi-fast release with a ratio of 10:1. And generally the way that I go about setting the threshold for all 3 of these bands is getting no more than 0.5 to 1 dB of reduction. And the next plugin that I use is the PwigTech EQP1A from Waves. And the really great thing about this plugin, there's a really great preset within the preset bank. If you go up to the preset bank, you go down to Drew Lane, you can find the preset right here. And this preset generally finds its way into all of my bass tracks. But this plugin does a really great job of accentuating the low end and high end without it getting fatiguing. And then the final plugin that I used within the bass chain is the BX limiter from Brainworks. And all I did is I pulled back the threshold to -10 dB to make sure that the dynamics are consistent throughout the entire track. And then the final stages of processing that I have going along with this bass track is a little bit of parallel reverb, a little bit of parallel saturation, and then a little bit of a wild card where I do a little bit of a phaser effect. The first plugin that I have in parallel with this bass track is a little bit of short reverb with Logic Pro X's stock Space Designer. And it just gives your bass track a little bit more life. And then the next parallel bus is incorporating a little bit of parallel saturation with the Decapitator from Sound Toys and the SDRR2 from Klanghelm. So basically the only things that I'm doing with these plugins is I'm maxing out the drive, and I have it on the end selection for the Decapitator, and then I max out the drive on the SDRR2, and then it's on the tube function. And then following this I have the Pro Q3 just cleaning up a little bit of the low end and high end to make sure those frequencies aren't going to get out of hand within the mix. And then the final stage of processing that I have in parallel with the bass track is a little bit of Phase Mistress from Sound Toys. And basically this is just a preset that I found that I really liked, and it added a really cool texture underneath the bass track. So if you go up to the presets, you go to slow sweeps, you can find the preset right here, 3x14 wide sweep. And then following this, I had the Pro Q3 cleaning up a little bit of the low end, a little bit of the high end, and then I had a little bit of dynamic control to control anything that's going on between 1.5K and 2.5K.